Reading through the Bible in 1 year, January 29th, Genesis 32, Esther 1, Matthew 23:37 through 24:28, and Acts 22:30 through 23:22. Jacob went on his way, and the angels of God met him. When Jacob saw them, he said, "This is God's camp." So he called the name of that place Mahanaim, or Mahanaim, which means two camps. And Jacob sent the messengers before him to Esau his brother in the land of Seir, the country of Edom, instructing them, "Thus you shall say to my lord Esau, thus says the servant of Jacob, I have sojourned with Laban, and stayed until now. I have oxen, donkeys, flocks, male servants and female servants. I have sent to tell my lord in order that I may find favor in your sight." And the messenger returned to Jacob, saying, We came to your brother Esau, and he is coming to meet you. There are 400 men with him. And Jacob was greatly afraid and distressed, and he divided the people who were with him, and the flocks and herds and camels into two camps, thinking, if Esau comes to the one camp and attacks it, then the camp that is left will escape. And Jacob said, "O God of my father Abraham and God of my father Isaac, O Lord, who said to me, return to your country and to your kindred, that I may do you good. I am not worthy of the least of all the deeds of steadfast love and the faithfulness that you have shown to your servant. For with only my staff I crossed this Jordan, and now I have two camps. Please deliver me from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau, for I fear him, so that he may come and attack me. That he may come and attack me, the mothers with the children. But you said, I will surely do you good, and make your offspring as the sand of the sea, which cannot be numbered for multitude." So he stayed there that night. And from what he had, he took with him a present for his brother Esau: 200 female goats, 20 male goats, 200 ewes and 20 rams, 30 milking camels and their calves, 40 cows, 10 bulls, 20 female donkeys, and 10 male donkeys. These he handed over to his servants, and drove it by itself, and said to his servants, "Pass on ahead of me," and put a space between drove and drove. And he instructed the first, "When my brother Esau meets you and asks you, to whom do you belong? Where are you going? And whose are these ahead of you? You shall say, they belong to your servant Jacob. They are a present sent to my lord Esau. And moreover, he is behind us." He likewise instructed the second and the third, and all who followed the droves. "You shall say the same thing to Esau when you find him. And you shall say, moreover, your servant Jacob is behind us, for he thought, I may appease him with the present that goes ahead of me. And afterward I shall see his face. Perhaps he will accept me." So the present passed on ahead of him, and he himself stayed that night in the camp. The same night he arose and took his 2 wives and his 2 female servants and his 11 children, and crossed the ford of Jabbok, and took them and set them across the stream with everything else that he had. And Jacob was left alone. And a man wrestled with him until the breaking of day. And when the man saw that he did not prevail against Jacob, he touched his hip socket. And Jacob's hip was put out of joint as he wrestled with him. Then he said, "Let me go, for the day is broken." But Jacob said, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." Then he said to him, "What is your name?" He said, "Jacob." And he said, "Your name shall no longer be called Jacob, but Israel, for you have striven with God, with men, and have prevailed." Israel means God strives, or strives with God. Then he said, I did that one. Then Jacob asked him, "Please tell me your name." But he said, "Why is it that you ask my name?" And there he blessed him. So Jacob called the name of the place Peniel, which means the face of God. "For I have seen God face to face, and yet my life has been delivered." The sun rose upon him as he passed Peniel, limping because of his hip. Therefore, to this day, the people of Israel do not eat the sinew of the thigh that is on the hip socket, because he touched the socket of Jacob's hip on the sinew of the thigh. Let's go to Esther. Now, Esther's kind of a neat book. It talks about something that happened while they were in captivity in Babylon, or in Babylonia, the area of Babylon. And one of the neat things about this book is it doesn't really reference anybody talking to God or getting word from God. It's kind of a neat thing. It's the only book that's like that. All right, let's go. Now, in the days of Ahasuerus, the Ahasuerus who reigned from India to Ethiopia, over 127 provinces. In those days, when King Ahasuerus sat on his royal throne in Susa, the citadel, in the 3rd year of his reign, he gave a feast for all his servants and officials and servants. The army of Persia and Media and nobles and governors of the provinces were before him, while he showed the riches of his royal glory and the splendor and pomp and, of his greatness for many days, 180 days, half a year this party went on. And when these days were completed, the king gave for all the people present in Susa the citadel, both great and small, a feast lasting 7 days in the court of the garden of the king's palace. There were white cotton curtains and violet hangings fastened with cords of fine linen and purple to silver rods and marble pillars, and also couches of gold and silver on a mosaic pavement of porphyry. There we go. Marble, mother of pearl and precious stones. Drinks were served in golden vessels of different kinds, and the royal wine was lavished according to the bounty of the king. And drinking was according to this edict. There is no compulsion. Have however much you want. For the king had given orders to all the staff of his palace to do as each man desired. Queen Vashti, his wife, also gave a feast for the women in the palace that belonged to King Ahasuerus. On the 7th day, when the heart of the king was merry with wine, he was hammered. He commanded Mehuman, Biztha, Harbona, Bigtha, Bagtha, Zethar, and Carcass, the 7 eunuchs who served in the presence of King Ahasuerus, to bring Queen Vashti before the king with her royal crown, in order to show the peoples and the princes her beauty, for she was lovely to look at. But Queen Vashti refused to come at the king's command, delivered by the eunuchs. At this, the king became enraged, and his anger burned within him. Now, there's questions on this, whether she was supposed to come and show off her body and whatever else, or whatever might happen. So, there were concerns on this that she had, obviously, but it makes sense why she would kind of refuse it, right? Regardless, it was her job and her role to obey the king and all that he said. It's the way it worked. So that's why the king became enraged. Then the king said to the wise men who knew the times, for this was the king's procedure toward all who were versed in law and judgment. The men next to him being Karshena, Sheshthar, Admatha, Tarshish, Meres, Marsena, and Memucan, the 12 princes of Persia and Media, who saw the king's face and sat first in the kingdom. According to the law, what is to be done to Queen Vashti? Because she has not performed the command of King Ahasuerus as delivered by the eunuchs. Then Memucan said in the presence of the king and the officials, not only against the king has Queen Vashti done wrong, but also against all the officials and the peoples who are in the provinces of King Ahasuerus. For the queen's behavior will be made known to all women, causing them to look at their husbands with contempt, since they will say, King Ahasuerus has commanded Queen Vashti to be brought before him, and she did not come. This very day, the noble women of Persia and Media, words are hard, who have heard of the queen's behavior, will say the same to all the king's officials, and there will be contempt and wrath and plenty. If it please the king, let a royal order go out from him, and let it be written among the laws of the Persians and the Medes, so that it may not be repealed, that Vashti is never again to come before King Ahasuerus. And let the king give her a royal position to another who is better than she. So when the decree made by the king is proclaimed throughout all his kingdom, for it is vast, all women will give honor to their husbands, high and low alike. This advice pleased the king and the princes, and the king did as Memucan had proposed. He sent letters to all the royal provinces, to every province in its own script, and to every people in its own language, that every man be master in his own household and speak according to the language of his people. All right, let's go to Matthew. All right. O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, the city that kills the prophets. This is after his woes, the woes he's proclaiming against the scribes and the Pharisees, the ruling Jewish elders of the land. O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, the city that kills the prophets and stones those who are sent to it. How often would I have gathered your children together as a hen gathers her brood under her wings, and you were not willing? See, your house is left to you desolate. For I tell you, you will not see me again until you say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Jesus left the temple, was going away. When his disciples came to point to him the buildings of the temple, but he answered them, you see all these? Do you not? Truly I say to you, there will not be left here one stone upon another that will not be thrown down. And that's happened, and their stones are still there, thrown down from the place where the temple was. That happened in 70 AD, 70. As he sat on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately, saying, tell us when these things will be, and what will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age? Now, these are three separate things that they're asking. First, when will these things be? Second, what is the sign? And third, what is the sign of the end of the age? Or what is the sign of his coming and then of the end of the age? And Jesus answered them, see that no one leads you astray. For many will come in my name, saying, I am the Christ, and they will lead many astray. And you will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not alarmed, for this must take place. But the end is not yet. For nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there will be famines and earthquakes in various places. All these are but the beginnings of the birth pains. Then they will deliver you up to tribulation and put you to death. You'll be hated by all nations for my name's sake. And then many will fall away and betray one another and hate one another. Many false prophets will arise and lead many astray. And because lawlessness will be increased, the love of many will grow cold. But the one who endures to the end will be saved. And this gospel of the kingdom will be proclaimed throughout the whole world as a testimony to all the nations. And then the end will come. So, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by the prophet Daniel, standing in the holy place, let the reader understand. There's a note on this. The abomination of desolation, the phrase refers to the desecration of the temple by the Syrian ruler Antiochus IV Epiphanes in 168 BC. Antiochus, however you want to say it, erected a pagan altar in the temple. According to Josephus, he also sacrificed swine there. Shortly before the AD 70, the Zealots entered the temple precincts during the war with Rome, and in their presence, could have been considered a desecration. In AD 70, the Romans entered the temple with military standards, ceremony insignia that were elements of their religion. Reliefs on the Arch of Titus in Rome show Roman troops removing the temple's sacred vessels, including the lampstand, after which they burned the temple. So when that happens, then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let the one who is on the housetop not go down to take what is in the house. Let the one who is in the field not turn back to take his cloak. And alas, for women who are pregnant, or for those who are nursing infants in those days. Pray that your flight may not be in winter or on a Sabbath. For then there will be great tribulation, such as has not been from the beginning of the world until now. No, and never will be. If those days had not been cut short, no human being would be saved. But for the sake of the elect, those days will be cut short. Then if anyone says to you, look, here's the Christ, or there he is, do not believe it. For false Christs and false prophets will arise and perform great signs and wonders, so as to lead astray, if possible, even the elect. See, I've told you beforehand. So if they say to you, look, he's in the wilderness, do not go out. If they say, look, he's in the inner rooms, do not believe it. For as the lightning comes from the east and shines as far as the west, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. Wherever the corpse is, there the vultures will gather. So what he's saying is you won't be able to miss it. It'll be huge. You won't be able to miss what's happening when Jesus comes back. So don't listen to people when they say, oh, well, here he is. It's not the case at all. All right, let's go to Acts 22:30 through 23:22. But on the next day, desiring to know the real reason why he was being accused by the Jews, he unbound him and commanded the chief priests and all the council to meet. And he brought Paul down and set him before them. Looking intently at the council, Paul said, brothers, I have lived my life before God in all good conscience up to this day. And the high priest Ananias commanded those who stood by him to strike him on the mouth. And Paul said to him, God is going to strike you, you whitewashed wall. Are you sitting to judge me according to the law, and yet contrary to the law, you have ordered me to be struck? Those who stood by said, would you revile God's high priest? Paul said, I did not know, brothers, that he was the high priest. For it is written, you shall not speak evil of a ruler of your people. Again, showing that he knows the law, right? He understands. Now, when Paul perceived that one part were Sadducees, which are sad, you see, because they don't believe in the resurrection, and the other Pharisees, he cried out in the council, brothers, I'm a Pharisee, a son of Pharisees, and it is with respect to the hope and resurrection of the dead that I am on trial. When he had said this, a dissension arose between the Pharisees and Sadducees, and the assembly was divided. For the Sadducees say that there is no resurrection, nor angel, nor spirit, but Pharisees acknowledge them all. Then a great clamor arose, and some of the scribes of the Pharisees party stood up and contended sharply, we find nothing wrong in this man. What if a spirit or an angel spoke to him? When the dissension became violent, the tribune, afraid that Paul would be torn to pieces by them, commanded the soldiers to go down and take him away from among them by force, and bringing him back to the barracks. The following night, the Lord stood by him and said, take courage, for as you have testified to the facts about me in Jerusalem, so you must testify also in Rome. Remember when he said that he was hoping to go to Jerusalem and after Jerusalem go to Rome? God said, I got you. Okay. When it was day, the Jews made a plot and bound themselves by an oath, neither to eat nor drink till they had killed Paul. There were more than 40 who made this conspiracy. And they went to the chief priests and elders and said, we have strictly bound ourselves by an oath to taste no food until we have killed Paul. Now, therefore, you, along with the council, give notice to the tribune to bring him down to you, as though you were going to determine his case more exactly. We are ready to kill him before he comes near. So now the son of Paul's sister heard of their ambush. So he went and entered the barracks and told Paul. Paul called one of the centurions and said to him, take this young man to the tribune, for he has something to tell him. So he took him and brought him to the tribune and said, Paul the prisoner called me and asked me to bring this young man to you, as he has something to say to you. The tribune took him by the hand and, going aside, asked him privately, what is it you have to tell me? He said, the Jews have agreed to ask you to bring Paul down to the council tomorrow, as though they're going to inquire somewhat more closely about him, but do not be persuaded by them. For more than 40 of their men are lying in ambush for him, who have bound themselves by an oath neither to eat nor drink until they have killed him. And now they are ready, waiting for your consent. So the tribune just dismissed the young man, charging him, tell no one that you have informed me of these things. Tomorrow, we're going to see that this the tribune, is actually a pretty decent guy. Sort of. It's kind of funny. All right, we'll do that then. So, behold, the word of the Lord.